Welcome to the XP Team USA podcast. We're digging the plugs and pinpointing the topics you want to hear.
And now, here's your hosts, Dave Kimball and Grant Hansen.
This show is brought to you by XP Metal Detectors. XP Metal Detectors is a high-end, innovative metal detector company with great machines and great pinpointers. For more information, go to xpmetaldetectors.com. For a dealer near you, try a Google search or go to xpdeus-usa.com. Hello and welcome to the XP Team USA podcast. I'm your host, Dave Kimball, coming to you from Central Oklahoma, and I am joined today by my co-host, Grant Hansen, coming to you from New Jersey. How you doing, Grant?
I'm doing well. Hi, everybody. How's everything in your neck of the woods, Dave?
It's going good. Weather's not too bad. Getting a little cooler again, but how about you?
Yeah, same. It's been down to 3 degrees, and then the next day it's up to almost 60 degrees, and then back down to 4 degrees, so... Keep guessing, and but the ground's pretty much frozen, so it might be a little while before I get out again.
Yeah, the weather here has been fluctuating too, and it's got my allergies kicked up. So I didn't have a voice this morning, and now I'm just now getting it back. So I might sound a little off.
Yeah, it's funny. I saw one groundhog in Pennsylvania, didn't see a shadow, so we'll have an earlier spring. And then a different groundhog somewhere else did see a shadow, so we'll have a late spring. But, you know, not that that stuff means anything, but I'm waiting for spring nonetheless.
Yeah, me too. I'm ready to get out and do some fishing, do some kayaking, do some metal detecting and everything else. I just can't wait.
Yeah. So we've got some stuff going on from XP Team USA. We've got a new episode up on YouTube, so I invite everyone to check that out. It's a really nice short episode, pretty engaging, so I think you'll enjoy that.
Yeah, great show. Check it out.
And we also have a Valentine's giveaway. We are giving away an MI6 pinpointer courtesy of XP Metal Detector Americas. So entering is pretty easy. Go to our Facebook page, and there's the pinned post with instructions. Simply write a short story about one of your favorite finds, and that will get you entered into the contest.
Yeah, and that is being hosted by Sonia Harshman, and she's on there. Just look for her post on XP Team USA group page, and you'll see everything that you need to know.
Yep, and for those who don't know, the MI6 pinpointer can be used as a standalone pinpointer. It doesn't have to be paired with a Deus or an ORX, so if you're using something else, it's still a great pinpointer.
Yes, it is very good sturdy pinpointer. Plus, you can charge it, no batteries. It's really good.
You know, I can't remember the last time I had to recharge mine. I should probably do it, but it's been months.
Well, all right. Well, we'll get a great show for you today. We got Mr. David Gaines with XP Team USA, and we also have Lance Goolsby with us today.
Yeah, I'm excited to speak to both these gentlemen. You know, always great to speak to another XP Team USA team member, and David is from Louisiana, so I'm sure he's going to have some great stories about some great finds. And Lance Goolsby, I mean, I thought I was a man of many hobbies, but he just has so many interests that he's passionate about and that he pursues. I'm really excited to learn more about that.
Right, and Lance Goolsby also is a host of the podcast GDA Podcast, Global Detection Adventures. Yeah, check him out. It's a pretty interesting podcast. It's been going on for a long time, and our very own David Dinatelli was his co-host there a while back. So
yeah, and if you're into old vintage toys, I believe he's got a podcast just on that as well. So again, a man of many interests.
Yeah. So let's get started with the show, and we'll get with David Gaines. XP Metal Detectors now introduces the new X35 search coils. Designed around a brand new electronic advances, these new high-performance and versatile coils will allow you to choose from a wide range of frequencies, ranging from 3.7 kHz to 27.7 kHz. In total, there are 35 available frequencies based around 5 main frequencies that are quickly accessible. A new boost mode is now an option on frequencies 3.7 kHz to 4.4 kHz and can significantly increase detection depth detect on highly conductive targets such as large masses and large silver coins. The new X35 search coils will now be available as option as the same price as the previous coils, and also now will be standard with a brand new Deus. So get your X35 today. We'd like to welcome David Gaines to our show. David is an XP Team USA member out of Louisiana. Welcome to the show, David.
Hey, glad for y'all having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Welcome to the show. For our listeners, can you please tell us a little bit about yourself? I understand you're married almost 10 years now and you have 2 young sons. What can you tell us about yourself?
I've been detecting for probably 8 years or so. I kind of got into it from some family history that was lost. I've kind of always been a history person. I loved studying it in college. I enjoy antiquing and collecting. My family loves doing it too. I got 2 great boys. Baseball season's coming up, so we're getting ready for that. And I do a lot of out-of-town work. I'm a fiber technician and a copper tech. I've lived in Louisiana for most of my life.
So your sons, do they show any interest in metal detecting yet?
Yes. Actually, both my boys were with me when I found my first silver ring. It was flattened and broken. I went and got it fixed and gave it to my wife as a Christmas present.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And my oldest boy, he was with me when we found a couple of sharps and stuff on our family property, and they love it.
Yeah, I was going to say, those are good finds. That could get that fever started early.
Yeah, I get to a point to where I don't have to buy my detector to go with me.
Yeah, and you mentioned your work in fiber optics and cable tech and your love of antiquing. You're actually in the process of opening an antique shop. Is that right?
That's correct. I purchased a old hardware store in the town I live in Zachary, Louisiana, and we totally remodeling it and turn it into an antique store. We're going to have booths for rent. My wife's going to sell clothes in the back, and I'm going to sell a little bit, coins and Civil War relics and just whatever neat stuff I can find. I really enjoy doing that. That's my second love as hobby-wise, behind detecting.
So being from Louisiana, you must find a wide range of U.S. history. Do you focus mainly on your detecting in your home state, or do you like to travel elsewhere?
Whenever I can. The problem with me is I work out of town a lot, so on the weekends I don't want to go out of town also because my family. But I do focus primarily on Louisiana, some in Mississippi. There's a lot of history in my hometown on this. The way I like to look at things is I find out somebody who owns a piece of property, and I know something was there or traveled through there at one time. And I've had very good luck, not even having to do much research, just knowing that there's so much history in that part of town. Some of that stuff is overlooked, and no matter how much research you do, you don't know that there was actually something there, even if it was just a camp or something. And I've had really good luck with that, just looking,
Yeah, you definitely live in a prime area when it comes to metal detecting, such a wide range of history. What kind of detecting do you prefer? Do you like the farm fields? Do you like home sites? Do you have a preference?
Oh, that's a hard one. I like farm fields because there's no roots, but also I like woods. A lot of times I feel like I find places that have been untouched more in the woods. Something you got to get real deep in the woods to find,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what kind of research do you conduct, and how do you gain permissions?
I feel permissions are very hard to get where I live. I believe that people have been burned in the past, or just funny about somebody coming on a property they don't know. The best way I've seen is to go talk to them about the history, carry on a conversation before even asking for permission. Sometimes if you just ask for permission, they look at you kind of funny and say no. Research, I like looking at a bunch of old maps. And for instance, there's a map that actually John gave me. I've had it online, but never owned it myself. It's the 1906 Bayou Sierra map. And what I like to do is I look for the houses. It shows houses on the map. I like to find the house locations that don't have a driveway or doesn't show a road connecting to that house. And that usually tells me that was pre-1906. It's an old house that's not used. Typically, I find older stuff at those sites. Civil War, early coins, pre-Civil War stuff. It's worked very well doing that.
Yeah, it sounds like a great strategy. And like you said, you found some pretty old stuff.
We'll be right back with David Gaines. XP has introduced its new ORX machine, a high-end machine at a mid-range price. The ORX has 4 factory preset programs, 2 gold, 2 coins, also 2 user programs. The ORX comes with a high-frequency coil and is compatible with the X35 coils. The ORX is now available in the USA. All right, we're back with XP Team USA field rep out of Louisiana, David Gaines.
Let's talk about this 17th century Luckenbooth brooch you found. Can you tell us what the day was like, what kind of property you found that on?
Okay, this was a construction site. They're building a new subdivision. We had gone out there in the past and I found like 4 or 5 artillery buttons, a cannonball, a ton of coins have been found on the site, like Spanish, bunch of seeded coins, a lot of half dime, but it's just a construction site. And it's also always good when you see them building a subdivision. They come in, they take that top layer off. Even if it's been hunted for years, it brings up a bunch of new signals and moves some trash out the way where you can find a lot more stuff in a place that you thought was hunted out that people have been hitting for years. So that Luckenbooth brooch is a really cool find. I found it and, knew it was old, but didn't know much about it. I'd never seen anything like it before. What's cool is there was this church. When they got married at this church, people bought it in front of the church as a good luck charm. And what happened was when people migrated over to the United States, Indians loved these for trade. They traded fur for them. So I've actually seen pictures with Indians with these charms or these brooches all over them, covered. And they traded them up to the 1860s. And then I guess they stopped trading them as much after the Civil War. That's where my research said that it ended around that time. But, I found it in Zachary, Louisiana. Who would ever know?
Yeah, they're pretty ornate pieces, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty heart with a pendant on the inside of it.
You just posted a picture recently of this button on the XP Team USA Facebook page. Tell us more about the story behind the GMI Central button.
Oh, okay. The Georgia Military Academy button. It's one piece. I found it in my own home city also. And actually, there's another subdivision site. We were hunting it. We were detecting, and there was this big oak tree, and a buddy of mine actually found one. I guess it was a week or 2 before I found mine. And I went there and swung real slow around the tree and ended up getting another one out. Beautiful button. I love it. I mean, it's one of my favorites.
Yeah, it's a beautiful button. If anyone wants to check it out, go to the XP Team USA Facebook page, and you'll see there's a pretty active thread of people posting their favorite buttons, so you'll see it there. You've also found your share of silver coins, as you were just talking about, Spanish silver to seeded dimes. It's funny, I find a lot of stuff from the mid-19th century, but I've only found one seeded coin. More Spanish silver than seeded. Do Spanish and seeded coins come up often for you, or are they kind of rare?
They used to be. I remember thinking that, I would have a buddy or a friend that found one, and it was just the most amazing thing to me that they were finding me. And I just wanted to find one so bad. And ever since I found them, it's just like, it seems like every couple of weeks I find one at least. Another place that I hunted not long ago was actually my last hunt. I found, the time before, I found a Spanish reals. I think it was early 1800s, maybe like 1801 or something like that, or 1779. And then the next hunt, I found a tribe.
Nice. I'm still waiting for a tribe myself.
Yeah, they're great finds.
Speaking of finding your fair share of things, how about Civil War artifacts? Louisiana must have is a good place to hunt for those, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. There's a lot of rare stuff comes out of here, too. And, I live not far from Port Hudson, so there's a lot of encampments and places to find things. Not only on the battlefield. Louisiana buttons, I've seen a good bit of Texas and T-millers and, Union and Confederate stuff.
So with all these great finds in your bag to date, what's number one on your bucket list? What haven't you found that you really want to find?
Well, what I really want to find, I think one of my top, if not the top, is a George Washington inaugural button. There's a lot of history with that man, the name, the button. There's some other things I really love to find, but I would love something connected to George Washington. I think that's probably number one on my list.
So in addition to dirt fishing, you share an interest on another hobby with me is fishing. I like to bass fish, and I do a lot of fishing out of a kayak. do you like fishing, and what do you fish for?
Largemouth bass fish. I live in my back door, about 90 feet away. I got a 12-acre pond.
Oh,
and then
nice.
on the same property, I have 5 other ponds. The biggest one is around 19 acres.
That's real nice.
Yeah, we got some really nice fish. I think my biggest one that I got in was 8 pounds, 11 ounces. I caught, I think it was 3 8-pounders in one day.
Wow.
One time we went, caught 20 fish in like 2 hours. The smallest one was 3 pounds. If you like sac-a-lait, do you like sac-a-lait fishing?
I never think I tried it.
It's a white perch sac-a-lait. We call it sac-a-lait down here. It's a really good white meat fish, and they spawn usually in March. And you can go out. I've caught over 700 of them at our place. I fished for 1 week straight during Easter break, and they're really fun when they're biting.
So you do a lot of bank fishing?
Well, with my boys, I do a lot. They really love fishing. They every single chance they get, they want to be out at the water.
Yeah,
if
I ever come by Louisiana, I'll definitely have to stop by and check out some of them ponds there. I'll have to bring some of my kayaks out there.
Well, we have aluminum boats with trolling motor and batteries and stuff. Yeah, we really catch some nice fish, or have in the past. Here lately, I don't have the time, but I love my metal detecting. And I've got this building I've been working on since August, redoing and getting ready to open up a store. So it's kind of everything else is taking priority right now, and I'm ready for a little break, let's just say that.
So have you come up with a name for your antique shop yet?
Yes, it's going to be Z Market for exactly what the town it's going to be in. That's what it's going to be so far.
And you also enjoy bottle digging, right? Do you think any of those bottles will show up in your antique shop?
I've never sold anything I found. Bottles, I might, some of the newer stuff, I might sell those. But yeah, I will have some bottles and stuff in there for sure.
And when you go digging for bottles, do you try to find a bottle dump, or do you have a different method?
Well, I've had a really good luck with my metal detector. What I do is that if I know I'm on an old house site, I look for just a ton of iron in one spot. There's a ton of iron. I dig it up, start looking, pay attention, and look for glass shards and stuff. So sometimes I'll just probe around and I end up finding the bottle top. I've gotten really lucky with that method, especially for some reason to find an iron on top. I don't know what it is, but I've dug 3 dumps and they all had an old iron sitting on top.
Yeah.
That's interesting, because I've come across those irony spots and there's broken glass, but I've never gotten that dump of bottles to kind of keep going. But I always have that excitement and the expectation that something might come up, but I've come up empty.
Yeah, that's the same here. I always come up with just broken glass.
Yeah, 9 times out of 10 for sure. I've dug a bunch of broken glass. And actually, you get down, you find a bottle, and it's actually broken on the backside of it. I've had that happen a lot.
Oh, so there's that question I like to ask everybody. I got to ask you too. If you were given a 1-day pass to metal detect anywhere that's always been off limits for metal detecting, where would you go?
The White House.
All right. That's a very popular answer.
Yeah. I mean, you got to think of all the history there. I mean, from it being burnt down to all the presidents.
Yeah.
That would probably be my number one, and then after that would probably be a battlefield. There's a bunch of pig farms, but
yeah, I imagine the White House too. When I detect, I like to be in solitude. So I imagine if you were to ever gain permission, you'd have a group of Secret Service people just following you around on every step.
Yeah, they'll be watching you hard for sure.
Yeah.
Who knows? One of these days we might have a president who likes the metal detect, and you'll see him out there with Secret Service with their backs turned, following him around.
Yeah,
Right.
not looking, we're not paying attention.
Yeah. Well, it was great talking to you, David, and we'd love to have you back again sometime, and we enjoyed having you on the show.
Well, thank y'all. I really enjoyed it too. This is kind of out of my zone, so I'm feeling a little more comfortable now. I want to thank y'all for inviting me just to be a part, and I love being part of the team. Thank y'all.
Thanks, David. Appreciate it.
No problem.
Check us out online at xpdeus-usa.com.
If you are needing the highest quality digging tool for metal detecting, then check out Predator Tools. Their digging tools are made from chromoly 4130 and heat treated and tempered to ensure the highest quality product. Predator tools are made in the USA and are also used in the United States military. All of their tools carry a 5-year warranty and are proven to be the toughest out there. So check out Predator Tools at predatortools.com. We would like to welcome Lance Goolsby to our show. Lance is an avid metal detectorist, a podcast host of GDA, Global Detection Adventures, a man of many hobbies and interests. Welcome to the show, Lance.
Thank you. Yeah, that's many hobbies is an understatement.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. I've got quite a bit of hobbies too, but I've been told by my wife I have to narrow it down because I can't do everything.
Yeah.
Yep.
But if you could, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're originally from and where you are now, what your family life is, anything you think that would help our listeners get to know you better.
Yeah, absolutely. I was born in Portland, Oregon, but in 1978, me and my family moved up to Seattle, Washington, actually just outside of Seattle, Washington, that's where I grew up, basically. I always say I'm a Seattle boy. Those were my formative years. Those are the years that I, became a teenager, and all my friends were from the area. So I always say I'm a Seattle boy. And then shortly after that, moved out to Colorado, got into the cowboy side of the U.S., grew up there, and experienced a new type of life that really stuck with me. Small town, outside Fort Collins, Colorado, up there. Got a chance to see the beauty of nature and everything else. And after that, I joined the Army. I joined the Army in 1989. I was in for 15 years. I was in the Army Airborne and went to places like Bosnia, Macedonia, Kosovo, Egypt, Iraq. Actually, I was in Kosovo 3 times, Iraq, Czech Republic, quite a few other places as well. After Iraq in 2003, I got out of the military. I couldn't handle it anymore. I was having a bunch of issues. I had 2 soldiers that were badly injured and one that nearly lost his life. And these were my direct soldiers, and it really affected me in a big way. And I got out of the military in 2004. Basically, I was going through PTSD symptoms. I did not know it. And then in 2012, I suffered a complete mental breakdown because of the PTSD. Really big, really hard time for me. Almost cost me my wife, my job, my everything that I had worked for my entire life. And I found metal detecting through my friends, KG and Ringy from Diggers. And well, they were my friends at the time, but I'd seen them on TV, and I was like, that might be something that I'd like to do. And so I decided to go out with my son. We bought a really cheap Chinese generic knockoff Garrett. I think it was an Ace 100 is what it was, a knockoff of. And one of the worst metal detectors, but it was enough to get me into the hobby. From the first time I swung and found a crossbow arrow tip, I was completely hooked. And at that point, I knew that this was going to be something that was going to be able to help me and help my PTSD, and it truly was. And from that point on, I decided I wanted to go as deep into this hobby as I could and try and experience as much as possible.
So you located in Germany through the Army. What made you stay there in Germany?
Well, I met my wife in 1995 over here, and it ended up just being, I love the area to begin with. I'm in North Bavaria, in an area that's known as Franconia in English. And it's very beautiful, very historic. I mean, they've had settlements here since Stone Age, basically. So it is a very historic area. It is very beautiful. I just love the area. And my wife just happened to meet her. And, once we got out of the military, I was given the option of moving back to the United States or staying in Europe. And I was in Italy at the time. And I was like, she has 9 brothers and sisters. I have just the 2. And I was like, well, let's just stay near where you are because it's more important. You have more family and stuff that you are going to be connected with. Let's stay here. My family has the ability to fly over. Yours has almost no ability to fly over to the States. So it's more important for me that you are near your family. And that's why I ended up staying here. And now I'm really glad I did.
That's great. It's a wonderful story that, you found a person and a family and a place that you can thrive in. What's detecting like in Germany versus the United States?
Well, I wouldn't be able to tell you how it is in the United States. I can, as far as permission hunting, as far as actually getting out onto the fields, I can't really tell you the differences in metal detecting. Last July when I was back in just outside Seattle, I talked my sister into buying, it was Garrett Ace, I think it was 200 or 250. I think it was an Ace 250 is what it was. And so I went out there and I showed her how to use it on her field because she has a horse farm and her horses are constantly kicking shoes off. And those things cost a pretty penny. She gets them smithed right there on the site. So it's not pre-purchased horseshoes. This guy literally makes them, drives up in a truck that has the smelter and everything in it, makes the horseshoes for them. And so they cost a pretty penny. So she wants to be able to go out and locate them. And so that was basically the first time I'd metal detected in the United States. One thing I did notice is that even though in Germany, I noticed we have, especially when we pull out coins, especially silver coins, you'll see a lot of incrustation on the silver coins because we have a very high calcium in the water and the land over here, and it just seems to stick to everything. And that was the one thing that I've noticed doesn't seem to be around too much in the United States. Every single field I go to with the XP Deus or the Rutus Alter 71, which I'm using at the moment, I have to quite literally ground balance, even if it's 500 meters away, every single time I change fields just because of the mineralization of the ground.
So if you had your pick, what kind of detecting would you prefer? Would you like farm fields or home sites?
I'm a relic hunter to begin with, so even if I have a farm field, I'm constantly looking for old maps of the area to try and find out exactly what was in this area prior, because I like to have an idea of what kind of eras and times that I'm looking for when I'm metal detecting. You know, there's fields here that weren't fields 200 years ago. They would have been wooded areas along that lines, and then fields that are currently fields for the last 400 years, 1,000 years ago would have been wooded area. So it's trying to find those areas and then footpaths that were going on them, which is where I find almost all the good stuff. Once I find something, I notice almost every single time it's on an old footpath or a horse path or whatever it was. But I'm a relic hunter by heart. I absolutely love finding relics, the mystery behind everything, the stories behind them. Yeah, that's what the GDA podcast, it's undergone another change, but I think this is a really good one. But we tell the stories of finds now. And that is one of the things that I love the absolute most about metal detecting is trying to find the story.
And when you say the good stuff, what's the kind of good stuff that you're finding over there?
My absolute best find to date is a religious medallion from the time of the Crusades. So it would have been a religious medallion that one of the family members of a crusader would have had on a necklace at the time. So it was a cross with Jesus on the cross, and on the bottom of it was a skull and crossbones, which at the time the skull and crossbones was a sign of the crusaders. So finding that one really, it's brass. It would have been probably silver plated or looking a little bit, probably just because it was brass, it probably would have been shined up to kind of give it that gold glint to it while the person was wearing it. But that one was probably about 1,600 years old.
Wow.
So I found that I just went through my box the other day. I'm finding shoe and hat buckles that go back 300-400 years, musket balls from old battlefields here. We had what was called the 30-Year War that kind of swept through this area. We're finding areas where we didn't even know that there was a battle at, but it turns out there's musket balls as if somebody had pulled out a musket ball from a pocket to try and load their weapons so fast that 15 others fell to the ground there. So that kind of gives us an idea of what we're finding. And me and the other guys, we love this.
So what are the laws over there in Germany? Are they anything similar to what they have in England?
It's a little bit more One of the major laws that is different is the Declaration of Treasure laws. We just actually talked about this on the podcast that got released the day we're recording this on Monday, where in Germany, basically, if there's states in Germany, just like in the United States, and I live in Bavaria. Bavaria is a state of Germany. Then you have a couple others. I'm not good with the states in Germany, forgive me. But each state has a different kind of law in place. In some of the former East German states, it's completely illegal to metal detect in some of them because they're just too worried about the amount of munitions that are going to be dug up from where the East German military was constantly lobbing artillery downrange into impact zones, which are now accessible by the public. So they decided to just go ahead and cut off metal detecting altogether in those areas. In Bavaria, it's completely legal. I can go anywhere. I could even go onto the farm fields without permissions, but I never do. For me, it's important to always let the farmer know that you're out there. But I can walk into any woods as long as there's not a fence or a sign that says no trespassing, and I can metal detect. If an object is found that the German government feels is of any kind of historic significance, they have the right to it. If we feel that it has historic significance, we need to register it every time we dig it up. If it's coins, it's not a big deal. If it's a gold block from the Vikings, we need to let them know. And we need to leave it in the ground where we found it and bring the archaeologists back to the site. And it'll immediately be declared a treasure and then given the offer to museums to purchase to display. And I guess that's really the big difference. You just got to watch where you go. And anybody that comes metal detecting over here, I say, feel free to give me a call and I can find out all the laws and regulations because I have them all saved on the computer for each one of the states.
That's great. And do you get to detect in any of the surrounding countries out there, or are you just focused solely on Germany?
I really want to be able to get out. I'm hoping this late this summer, I'm going to be able to get out to England to detect out there. I'm going to try and get up to Poland as well this year. And I would love to get a little bit further out to the west, into Luxembourg, into France, into those areas, and try and do some metal detecting out in that area as well. I'm also a World War II historian and buff, so finding any of that stuff would really be big for me as well.
So let's switch up some gears for a minute. I hear you're a big Star Wars fan.
Yes, I am.
Is this all the movies or just the originals?
No, every one of them. Every one of them, the television series, the books, the comic books. If it has Star Wars on it, I mean, if you had the video on this thing, I am completely surrounded in this room by Star Wars and comic book characters in the studio where I'm at right now. These are all things that I've just grown up loving, and I just never grew up, my wife says. So
I know you and I shared some messages about this, but you must have a pretty good collection of memorabilia in addition to just the comic.
Oh, I do. I have original figures. I'm still trying to find a lot of the figures. Before my mental breakdown, I figured that I wanted to just get away from anything that was childish, and I thought I was being adult. And so I gave all the toys that I collected over 30 plus years to my sons, and then they just kind of, got bored with them and sold them on a flea market. And now I'm wishing that I hadn't done that. But the fun part of this is that I'm able to go to flea markets and stuff like that and try and get my collection back together. And that's another one of my obsessions, is going to these flea markets.
Yeah, so you got another podcast, right, that talks a little bit about this?
Oh, yeah. There's me, James, and Kevin. We talk every week about geek news and geek culture. It's called There Is Another. It's basically referencing Yoda in The Empire Strikes Back when the ghost of Obi-Wan Kenobi shows up to Yoda on, I want to say Dantooine, Dagobah, and says, "This boy is our hope." And then Yoda looks at him and says, "No, there is another." So, but we talk about the movies, the comic book movies that are coming out, the comic book TV shows, Star Wars. A lot of news from Star Wars, especially since this year we're finally getting the last of the Skywalker saga. And this is going to be one of the biggest years for Star Wars in almost 40 years.
You know, what I'm about to say may put me on your block list, but I've never read a comic book in my entire life.
No, that's one of the things. I grew up. I didn't either until I want to say my grandparents lived up on Mount St. Helens back in the late 70s. They made it out when it exploded. They on the first one in 1980. They got out of there. They got out of Dodge. They both lived to a ripe old age. But my first comic book was actually my cousin left one sitting up in their cabin at Mount St. Helens, and I read it. And from that day forward, I was hooked on comic books. And the X-Men is by far the one that I'm absolutely the most insane about. I've collected them my entire life.
So what other toys do you have in your collection other than Star Wars?
Oh, I collect toys from my childhood, stuff that I remember as a kid. And then what I do is I do what I call flea market rescues. I find old classic 60s, 70s, 80s toys that people might have in just a junk box for sale for maybe, what we call 50-cent coins. So it's about 60 cents American. I collect everything I can, even if it's beat up and it looks like junk. I bring it home and I give it a place where it can be seen again. One of my recent ones, I was sitting at a flea market and I was looking through a box and the guy said, everything in the box is €1. And I looked in there. Do you remember the old TV show Space 1999?
I do not.
It was on in the late 70s. It was like TV's answer to Star Wars before Buck Rogers came on. I saw this ship and I was like, well, that's a ship from Space 1999. It's missing a piece. And I kept digging through the box and I found the piece. I snapped it back on there. I asked the guy how much it was. And he said, yeah, €1. It came out of the box. I was like, okay. And I got back home. I did some research. It's because it's one of the rare ones out of the late 70s. So it's worth about $250.
Nice. Good score.
Yeah, it sits prominently in my display case now.
You said you like the X-Men the best. Would you then say you're a Marvel guy or DC Comics, or do you play no favorites? Okay.
Growing up, I was extremely Marvel only. I just could not connect to the DC universe while I was growing up. To me, it was a lot more reading and not so much action. And it makes sense. I mean, if you think about it, Batman is the detective. He's the world's greatest detective. Superman, he has an ego that would inflate a hot air balloon. So it was one of those things. I didn't really like it. And the X-Men spoke more to me because I was an outcast in school. I was bullied. I was bullied heavily in school. And these kids in the X-Men, they all had problems. They were outcasts. They felt alone. And for some reason, it just connected to me. Later in life, I kind of migrated over to DC, and Batman is probably one of my greatest all-time favorite comic book series now. Still trying to catch up with all the stuff, but 80 years worth of comic books is a little bit too much to catch up on.
So you take your love for comics to the next level. You also enjoy cosplay, right? Is that right?
Yeah. That's the other thing. The cosplay I do is actually more locally. I do this for the local theater. We try to raise money for the orphanage here in town. Since I was adopted as well, this is a large thing for me. So when they have special events for children, I put on costume as Obi-Wan Kenobi and go to the theater and help raise some awareness for the orphanage in town and try and raise some money to help them out, especially during the holiday seasons.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. The more we talk to you, the more I'm thinking you're a really busy guy, and you also have a love of painting. Is that right? And what kind of style do you paint?
I do geek culture, basically. In my studio, I have a painting I did of the cartoon character Harley Quinn. I've got Catwoman. Downstairs, I just started a new one for my granddaughter for it's Princess Leia. So that she could have that when she gets a little bit older. So I've done everything from the Master Chief in Halo to Darth Vader, Stormtroopers, Minnie Mouse, The Little Mermaid. I've done just about everything. And people ask me, can you do this? And as soon as they ask me if I could do it, I'm like, I don't know. Let me try. And I just start painting. It's something that I love. It kind of helps pass the time, keeps my eyes, my brain focused to try and get away from all the depression and everything else that floods me through the illness from the war.
You are certainly a man of many hats. Can you please tell us more about your podcast, GDA, which stands for Global Detection Adventures, and when it airs and how people can tune in on it?
Yeah, well, GDA is also a metal detecting podcast. We talk about metal detecting finds from all around the world and the stories behind them. That's how this new season has turned up, such as this last episode was about the Crosby Garrett helmet found in Cumbria, England. And the important thing about this one is that it is a 1,000 to 2,000-year-old helmet, a Roman helmet that was found buried in the ground next to a very large encampment that was previously known, but they didn't know it was as old as it turned out to be. Now, unfortunately, the British laws did not declare it a treasure because it is a brass helmet. And the current British law says that only precious metals and jewels will be considered a treasure. So this helmet basically slid underneath the radar and got handed back to the finders. At no fault of their own, they decided to offer it up for auction at Christie's auction house and even turned down offers from museums for it. It ended up fetching just short of $3 million at auction. But because they got lucky, it got sold to a British collector who then turned around and gave it to museums to display over the years. But they got lucky in that regards, because if it had been sold to a private collector, it would have been gone, especially if it was a collector from out of the country. It would have been gone. So the Brits are looking at this, and they're currently about to change the law to that anything found worth over 10,000 euro will then be officially declared treasure.
Yeah, I saw that article. There's a lot of things being passed around about the new Treasure Act and the updates, and everybody's opinion on it.
Yeah, and it's just crazy when you think about it. It all stems from a helmet that was found in 2010, and the fact that they almost lost it and just got a lucky break by pure happenstance.
Yeah, what about that disc that they found, that Nebra Skydesk?
The Nebra Skydesk was located about an hour and a half from where I'm at north of us. So I think it was in 1999 or 2000, somewhere around there. Don't quote me on the years, even though I did the research for this. It's one of the craziest stories because the two metal detectors were out metal detecting in the area. The woods where they were at is absolutely fine to metal detect, but they started finding Bronze Age axe heads and wedges for wood. So they started digging those up, and then all of a sudden they found the Nebra Skydesk, two swords made out of bronze, and two spiral gold bracelets. And these guys knew that they were what they were planning was going to break the law. And they turned around, drove home, and the next day they drove down to I can't remember exactly what town it was or what city it was, but they sold them off on the black market within 24 hours of them locating it. It turns out that the disc was 2,500 years old, and it was used by what turns out to be the very first king of Europe, was using it to determine the times to plant and dictating it to his people when what the perfect time to plant was, and when they should stop planting and everything else. It only went out of style when, oddly enough, a volcano in Greece erupted that put a smoke cloud of ash over Europe for about 2 years, and at that point everybody just started splitting up and going their own way. So it was big news.
Yeah, it's amazing all the stuff that's been coming up, and I follow the news closely, and whether it's a piece from a chariot, a complete chariot, 2,500 plus silver hammer coins. It's we love detecting in the U.S. relics and old coins, but it seems like the opportunity for the real ancient treasure is across the pond.
Yeah.
But it is. That's one of the things that I love about this. Even in the United States, I'm jealous. I'm envious of you guys because you guys can, I grew up American. You guys grew up American. You've got all the history books that talk about the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, and everything. And it's all laying in the ground over there. And you guys have the opportunity to pull it up. Now I'm pulling up history in American over here in Europe that I almost know nothing about. So as I pull it up, I have to look it up myself and find out exactly what it is. I mean, I guess it comes down to the person. For me, I'm as envious of you guys as you might be of me.
Yeah, I like to think history is relative to where you are, right?
Yeah.
So, what you're finding in the areas you're searching, that doesn't mean it's less significant just because it's not as old.
Exactly. And that's one of the things. I mean, like you're talking about, I think it was last week, 2,500 silver hammered coins were located in England, I believe it was. Great story. A father and daughter found so many coins. I just couldn't even fathom them when they had them laid out. It's just dumbfounding seeing all that stuff on the ground. Just unbelievable. Awesome. There's stories all over the place, and I'm just going to dig them up and share them with everybody. And I just think it's good for us to know and how some of these finds affect the laws that affect us.
When does your show GDA air, and how can people find that?
Well, the GDA radio podcast comes out every Monday. You can find it on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spreaker. We're on Spotify. We're just about everywhere that you can get a podcast. Just do a search for GDA Radio Podcast, and you can find it there. You can also find it right on our website. That's gdapod.com. And you can find the player right on there and listen right from the website. We also have the show notes. So as we're talking about stuff, you can see images of the items that we're talking about right on the website as well. So if you want to find out, just like this week, if you want to find out what the helmet looks like, I got 3-4 photos of it right on the website. So yeah, you can find us right there. I hope people tune in. I'm having a really good time. We got a new host, 42 out of England, and so I find it to be a fun show.
Yeah, I'll definitely tune in. And for everybody, just to remind them, that was gdapod.com, right?
Yeah, GDA Pod, short for Global Detection Adventures Podcast, gdapod.com.
All right. Well, it was great having you, Lance, and we'd love to talk to you again sometime. And for everybody, go check them out on GDA Podcast.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me on. This has been a pleasure.
Great. Yeah, thanks so much, Lance. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
Take care.
If you have a question for one of our guests or just like to make a comment, call us at our XP Team USA podcast hotline at 405-294-3602.
This is Express News with Dave D.
Orange County, Virginia, Montpelier. This 2,650-acre plantation was owned and operated by the 4th President of the United States, James Madison. In 1966, Montpelier was declared a National Historical Landmark. In recent years, this property has been the site of annual and seasonal archaeological excavations. These excavations have revealed early structures related to the lives of enslaved African Americans. The artifacts found are helping researchers form a much broader and deeper picture of the lives of the slaves at Montpelier. Today, the Hands-On Expeditions program is a partnership with the metal detecting community and archaeology. Here, you will work together to uncover clues and artifacts of the enslaved people who built and inhabited Montpelier. This 5-day program starts November 10th through the 15th of 2019. For more information, go to www.montpelier.org. You know, technology has come a long way for metal detecting, and here are a few applications to help. First up, OnX Maps, or OnX Hunt GPS Maps. It's very important to be aware of property boundaries. The OnX Maps Hunt app shows where those lines are and what type of property it is. This will give you information not only on the type of property, but also who the landowner is. Next up, iSmart Detect. This application was designed to track finds and share them easily with others. It's as easy as taking a photo to record the location, just add notes for future references, and it uses Google Maps to place markers. And finally, TectoTract. This application will not only track the path you walk, but the location of the finds and pictures with notes. Detectotrack is great if you have a large permission and want to grid it well over time. This app shows you what you have detected previously. Export data to use in Google Earth for another view of your hunt, and you can also change color for more organization. For more information on these metal detecting applications or the hands-on expedition at Montpelier, contact me at xpteamusadave@gmail.com. You have been listening to Express News. I'm Dave D. Now, back to Dave and Grant in the studio.
This segment is brought to you by Omega Mill Pouches, the official digging pouch of XP Team USA. If you're looking for a rugged, hunt-tested, washable pouch, look no further than Omega Mill. Get on eBay and search Omega Mill Pouches. That's OMEGAMILL.
All right, well, that was Express News with Dave D.
Yeah, it was great to hear another voice of somebody doing that. I really appreciate that. Thanks, Dave.
All right, yeah, and it was great information with the apps and everything.
Yeah, I'm going to have to check those out. They sound really intriguing, especially the one where you can not just record where you found it, but take a picture to document that. I think that's very useful.
Yeah, it is. It'd come in handy. Well, I hope everybody enjoyed our show today. Like I said, go on and check us out on YouTube, and don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to follow our show here on Spreaker, and give this show a like.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. And again, don't forget about the Valentine's giveaway, which is the XP MI6 pinpointer, courtesy of XP Metal Detectors Americas, run by Sonia Harshman.
Yeah, and check us out on our next show. We'll have Josh Kimmel and Larry Hockman.
That's going to be a good one. Can't wait for that.
Well, we'll see you February 22nd.
Take care, everybody.
Get that permission, put the coil to the soil, and we'll see you next time right here on the XP Team USA podcast.